Depending on your choice of DSP configuration, you'll have signal processing available on all of your input channels, your groups, your sums, your auxes. If you don't have direct access to the parameter you want to adjust from the free controls, then just select a fader, for example our mic channel, and come into the central control section here in the center section. Here we've got direct access to things like our equalizer, our dynamics. Every parameter for the channel is available in this area. As you're working in here, for example, if I want to adjust an EQ gain, then a pop-up window appears on the central GUI giving me feedback on the current values. This will appear on top of any display in the central GUI. If I want to get more of an overview of the channel, then I can switch to the main display using the Chan config button. So here we're seeing an overview of the complete channel parameters, and this is organised in a similar manner to the controls in the centre section. There's also a very useful area here on the right-hand side, underneath the modules, where I can see immediately that my EQ, my sidechain filters, my compressor and my panning are switched on. There's a second page under the Chan config button called Channel Config, and this gives me an overview of the signal flow through my selected channel. So for this mic input, I can see, for example, that the filters are before the equalizer section. I can also change things like the order of processing from this display. So, for example, I could pick up the equalizer section and, using the soft keys, move that block of processing to any other point in the signal flow. So, for example, if I want to use an insert point later, I can decide if the EQ is before or after the insert, send and return. Just press Chan config to get back to the main graphical display. The controls in the central control section are all color-coded to help you find things quickly. So for example, our equalizer, our filters and our sidechain filter controls here are in blue. Everything for the dynamics is in magenta. Gain elements like the input gain, the digital gain and the direct out level are in red, and our aux sends are in green. There's also a panning section over here, and that's in yellow. If I want to adjust the equalizer for this mic channel, then come into the area of blue controls here. In a recording channel, I have a 4-band equalizer section, a 2-band set of additional filters, and also sidechain filtering, which can be inserted into the compressor or the gate. So if you're wanting to adjust the 4-band EQ, the first thing to do is to make sure that you have the EQ paged onto the controls. You'll see there's a dedicated on button for each of those 3 modules of processing. So EQ on off, filters on off, and sidechain filters on off. The equalizer has gain, frequency and Q controls for each band. They range across the whole frequency range, and the type of EQ can be selected from the main display. So here on the main display I can see I have a low shelf, 2 bands using constant Q and a high shelf. If I click in this area, then I could change, for example, to make the high band rather than a shelving EQ, we could use a bell EQ. Whenever you're using the rotary controls on either the central control section or on the fader strip, you can turn for fine control, push down and turn if you want to adjust a value quickly. Let's take another example. If I want to adjust the compressor on my microphone channel, then come over to the dynamics area. And the controls here can be paged again to the different processing sections. So we have gate, an expander, a compressor and a limiter. And each one of these modules can be switched independently on or off. So I need to make sure I've got compressor selected, and then I have all the controls that I need here. So I can adjust my threshold, the ratio, my attack and release time, my look ahead delay, and the makeup gain for that compressor section. As I'm working with the compressor, you'll see in the main display, in the touch area, the sense area, a graphical overview. And you'll also see the gain reduction metering for the compressor. So as I increase the ratio there, we can see we now have quite an aggressive amount of compression. You can also see the ball moving on the main display. That's showing kind of where the compressor is acting. So there's lots of visual feedback as you're adjusting your dynamics processing. Another thing we might want to do, perhaps not on an input channel, but maybe on an output, such as a group. So let me select a group, is if we need to delay that group to make up for delays in the video chain. So now I have group 1 in access, and there is delay for the group because it's the same signal processing flow as an input channel. Here is the signal processing for my group. So I can come up to this area, and this is paged between some gain, a digital gain element called the digamp, the channel delay, which is what we're going to use in a moment, and also my insert, switching and send level. So make sure you have delay selected. Adjust the control to adjust the amount of delay, and you can see the time in this area on the main display. The delay time can be adjusted in different ways. So here we're seeing milliseconds. We can switch that to show frames or meters as well if we were in a recording session and we wanted to measure the distance. Remember again that that delay isn't active until I switch on the module. So I can either do that from the on button, or I can do it on the touch screen on the main display. If I go back to my microphone channel, another example might be if we want to use an outboard processor on our microphone channel, and to do that we're going to use the insert send point. So come to the central control section, page to the insert, and here you have your switching on and off for the return, and also control of the send level going to that outboard processor. At the moment, if I switch on the return, then signal disappears because I have nothing patched to and from the insert send and return point. I can take care of that by using the signal list routing. So if we go to the signal list, underneath the directories we'll find all the insert sends for our input channels. Our microphone channel is actually input 67. So if I find the send, I can patch that to my outboard processor. Let's say that's connected to line out 1. And then I need to patch the return by finding line input 1 on the DALIS and routing that to the insert return of the same channel. Now I can use the insert on button to switch the outboard processor in and out of circuit. If I page to the channel configuration page, I'll also see now at the bottom of the display a little summary of the routing. So this is my input routing showing that this channel is coming from microphone 1. But also now in the insert send and the insert return areas, I can see that the send and return points are patched from line 1. If I was using other elements like the direct output from the channel, I'd see the destination of that here. While we're in the channel configuration page, you can also see that there's some color coding here. So any modules which are in green, like the equalizer, the compressor, are switched on, and anything in blue is currently out of circuit. So if I come back to the central control section and turn off the EQ, you'll see the colors changing there on the display. It's just another way of checking which modules are on or off. So the yellow controls on the right here are for adjusting the panning for the selected channel. With my mono mic channel in access, and if I'm only working in stereo, then really I'm only going to probably be using the control on the left, which is my left-right adjustment out to any of my stereo bus outputs. Remember, as with all the other sections, that you'll only be panning if the pan section is turned on. If we're working in 5.1, then we need a lot more functionality. So again, turn on the pan section enables the left, centre, right and the front rear panning controls. Alternatively, I can grab the joystick to position my mono channel anywhere within the 5.1 speaker field. That gives me my 5-channel panning. If I push the page button, then you'll find you have on the left control level adjustment to the subwoofer or the LFE channel. So I can decide how much of this channel I'm feeding to the sub. The right control also adjusts how the mono channel is panned to the centre speaker, and this is called the slope. At the moment I have the slope at its minimum value, so there's nothing feeding the centre speaker. When we are panned in the middle here, we are feeding left and right equally, nothing to the discrete centre channel. As I adjust the slope, for example to 0, then I will have equal signal power going to left, centre and right. Take the slope all the way to its maximum value, and now when we're panned in the centre, we are only feeding the discrete centre channel with nothing going to left and right. If you have a 5.1 input to deal with, for example from another area of the broadcast centre, then select the 5.1 channel and you can deal with it in a similar manner to before, or we can switch into hyperpan mode. On the main display, you'll see that the panning area updates to give us a different view of the 5-channel panning. And the rotary controls will now behave in a different manner. So the control on the left will turn the 5 input channels within the surround field. So for example, I can offset the left, centre, right and surround left, right signal. The right control adjusts the depth, and I can combine these if I wish. If I press the page button now, I also have controls to reduce the width of the front image or the width at the rear.